The aftermath of war not only entails psychological effects, but also comes with a variety of health issues like different cancers, breathing problems, and other health consequences. And that's why the PACT Act was established to help veterans that have fallen ill due to the exposure of toxins and other chemicals. And Dr. Ruiz, Congressman Ruiz, is here to elaborate more on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. Um, yes, the our service members, when they go off to fight for war, many of them come back and they may not have had a physical trauma from either being shot or being near an explosive or traumatic brain injury or whatnot, but they are also exposed to chemicals that our own military has exposed them to. So, for example, the big one is burn pits. And these are huge pits that are dug into the ground, sometimes 1 or 2 acres wide, where the military would burn jet fuel, plastics, computers, biological substances, waste, and you would have these black plumes of smoke going up maybe 1, 2 miles high in the air. And all that black smoke would also go into the bases where our service members would sleep. Many of them called it the Iraqi crud, but they would feel irritation, their nose, their sinuses, their throat, and they would wake up with all this black smoke in their face. Well, that black smoke contains carcinogens, and that black smoke can go into our service members' lungs and cause lung disease. And so, after they were discharged from their service in good standing, they years later they would start to develop cancers at a very young age. Otherwise healthy individuals with no other risk factors for these cancers. And many of them would start to notice that they would have difficulty breathing, difficulty climbing stairs. They would go to the Department of Defense doctors. They would say, you know, you're crazy, you're faking it, because they would otherwise be young. But then they would come down with constrictive bronchiolitis, chronic bronchitis, and other illnesses that would prohibit them from being able to walk, to work, and would require 100% disability with oxygen use at all times. So you can imagine a young, vibrant veteran or service member who now has a family, kids to support, and they can't work because they can't breathe, and the depression and anxiety that comes with it. So for years, I have fought the VA and the Department of Defense on this. Many of them would say that that you know there's no studies to correlate these illnesses with burn pits. But as a physician and a public health expert, I read those studies myself, and I would refute their methodology. And in fact, in many of these studies, they didn't even ask the right questions. They not once had a study that determined whether cancer was related to burn pits. But we had case reports in the literature. We also had studies from the dirt on the ground and taking some of the air quality in the area during the use of burn pits. And we realized there was a lot of carcinogens, and carcinogens cause cancers. And so, we really pushed back on them. But let me take a step back because I want to tell you how I got involved with this to begin with. And I got involved because a 38-year-old mother of two who worked at a local hospital asked me to meet with her, and I went to her house in a kitchen table. Her name is Jennifer Kepner. And she was very, very skinny. She didn't have much hair because she was taking chemotherapy for pancreatic cancer. And she knew that it's one of the most aggressive cancers, and she knew that her time was limited. And so she told me about how difficult it was for her to get seen at the VA, difficult for her to get the benefits for when she would pass away, that her family could get and her family would be taken care of. So I promised her at that kitchen table that I would help her. She asked for two things. One was to fight for other veterans so they don't go through what she went through. and two, to help her husband, soon to be widow, get the benefits to help take care of their kids. And the VA first denied her husband those benefits. They appealed it, and I fought with them, and they were eventually able to get those benefits. They were awarded those benefits. But about 4 months later, she died. She died of pancreatic cancer. And so it was under her name and her the banner of her story that I fought. And throughout the years, I took a public health approach. One is to provide the veterans the care and benefits they need. Two is to educate the veterans and the doctors about the potential symptoms and the risks of being exposed to burn pits so they can provide the adequate care. Three is to uh, uh, do the research necessary to identify all the different possibilities of illnesses that can come from being exposed to burn pits. And then four is to eliminate burn pits, the use of burn pits once and for all, so that other service members will not be exposed. So we would introduce bills and pass them throughout. And then we introduced finally a comprehensive bill called the Presumptive Benefits for Warfighters Exposed to Burn Pits and Other Toxins Act. And we did that with a host of veteran service organizations working together to put all their best ideas, which gave 23 illnesses or categories of illnesses presumptive benefits. So you didn't have to prove that your illness was associated with burn pits or that you served at a certain location, and all the struggle, the burden of proof was on the veteran. Now with presumptive benefits, the veterans just needs to say, I have this illness, I served in this location, and their records will show it. And if they have that illness, they'll get the benefits for care and any disability that they need to live a life with dignity. So that bill became the framework of the Honoring Our PACT Act, and basically there were two game changers. After 6 years of pushing this forward and fighting with the administration to make sure that veterans get the care that they need, in service to all of the veterans that I've met, and especially Jennifer Kepner and her family, the two game changers were Jon Stewart, the actor, and John Field. That they came in and they took this cause and they amplified it in the national media, and so more and more people were talking about it. And he and I were able to play good cop, bad cop. You know, he's famous for attacking the any legislature who's not going to stand with the people, which I truly respect. And so I was able to play the good cop in order to get folks to move along. And the second game changer was President Biden and his administration with the Secretary McDonough of the VA, because the Secretary McDonough, under President Biden's leadership, determined that veterans who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, who were exposed to burn pits, were able to get presumptive benefits for rhinitis, sinusitis, and asthma. And initially, I was upset because there were so many more severe illnesses that our veterans were suffering from and dying from. But I realized the quantum leap we made, because now the debate was not whether or not burn pits could cause these illnesses, which I was fighting for 6 years, but the administration accepted that indeed burn pits could cause illnesses, and they identified three. So the fight now was to expand that list. And so, under the leadership of the House VA Committee, Representative Mark Takano, my neighbor here in Riverside, and we had spoken, and I had gone back onto the VA Committee precisely to get burn pits bill legislation, comprehensive treatment for veterans through legislation. We managed to get it out of the House. The Senate passed it, and the president signed it. And so, with that, over 4 million veterans and their family members will be able to have presumptive benefits for about over 300 specific illnesses. Because remember, I said 23 categories of illnesses and specific illnesses. So if you add them all up, it's about over 300 specific diseases and illnesses. And since then, within the bill, we gave the VA a process to expand the type of illnesses that they're identifying to be associated with burn pits. So it's the biggest, most expansive um, uh, increase to access of healthcare and benefits for veterans in generations that we were able to get through under President Biden's leadership. And already in my district, California's 25th district, we've had over 5,000 claims. We're number 2 in the whole state of California. The very first outreach session that in the whole nation after the bill was passed was in my district in Hemet. And so we're moving the bill implementation forward so that veterans are aware of their benefits, aware of the potential illnesses of being exposed to burn pits, so they can identify it quickly and get the treatment to prevent death or prevent chronic, severe, debilitating disease. And you know, I'm very proud of the work that all the veterans came together to not only give the ideas, but to get this over the finish line.
So, what's the latest war that veterans had to partake in to be able to qualify for the PACT Act?
Well, the PACT Act has many different provisions. One is the largest provision is due to burn pits, and burn pits were used in Iraq and Afghanistan. The other thing that they did was they actually expanded the locations and the illnesses that Vietnam veterans who were exposed to Agent Orange could now apply for. And they also expanded the type of illnesses that veterans who fought in the Gulf War can be eligible for aid and healthcare services for those illnesses. So for Vietnam veterans who have not had any claims of disability or benefits or healthcare for specific illnesses who served in Vietnam, I would definitely review the list. For the Gulf War veterans who also have health problems, I would definitely review the new list. And for all those that applied for burn pits benefits, there's a very important deadline coming up. So let me explain this because it can be a bit complex. When the bill was passed, veterans were given an opportunity to tell the VA administration that they were going to apply for benefits, or they were going to file a claim. So that window was called an intent to file. Okay. So they submitted an intent to file. And then they had 1 year after they submitted that intent to file to actually file their claim application. Okay. And the reason why they gave those veterans the grace period was while the VA was implementing this bill, getting ready, they wanted to ensure that veterans who initially put their intent to file, once their claims were approved, they can get their benefits retroactive all the way to when the bill was signed into law, like around August 22nd, 2022. So that was, they could get a lot more benefits. So August 14th was when that grace period for the intent to file period deadline is over. But those that which tells me that were many of the veterans who filed their intent to file, either they missed their year opportunity or they're coming up to that year very closely. So for those who haven't missed it, please file your claim as soon as possible. And for those that have missed it, or for those who did not file an intent to file, they can still file a claim, and they can still get the benefits. The only difference is that your benefits will not be retroactive all the way back to when the bill was signed into law, but it will be retroactive of when you file the claim. So you'll still get benefits, just not as much as if you would have gotten if you filed the claim within the year after filing an intent to file. So it's still worth it. It's still available. The benefits are still important to get the health care and to get the benefits that's needed.
So just to clarify quickly, this upcoming August 14th is a deadline.
So for the people who filed an intent to file, okay, this is why it's a little tricky.
Okay.
They had a year to file their claim. Okay.
Right.
So, and that's happening right now in a rolling basis.
Okay.
But we know that the ability to file an intent to file ended August 14th of last year.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Right,
So it's not a deadline for everybody who filed an intent to file, but we know that veterans who filed an intent to file, we're getting pretty close to their annual deadline. So that's why we want to remind veterans, especially those that did an intent to file their claims before their specific annual deadline is over.
Okay. Because I'm still kind of confused about. I'm gonna edit this anyway. So the intent to file deadline was 2023. Was August 14th of 2023.
So that was the last day that a person could file an intent to file.
Right. Okay. That was the last day. Okay.
But let's say somebody filed an intent to file July 25th of last year.
Okay.
That means that their deadline is July 25th of this year.
Okay. Okay. So what happens if you don't file in that deadline?
What happens is that you should still file a claim, but your benefits will kick in when you file the claim. Okay.
Right.
The people that meet their deadlines could get their benefits kick in from when the bill was signed by the president.
Okay. That's what I was missing.
That's the difference.
That's the key. If you file within the intent to file grace period, then you qualify for all of the benefits from when the bill was.
Yes, sir.
Passed. And when was it passed again?
I believe it was August of 2022, and I believe it was August 22nd.
Okay. So is that where all the confusion is coming from?
Yes, I think that it's easy to just pick a deadline, and everybody has to say, "Oh, there's this deadline."
Yeah,
but the confusion is that that it's actually the grace period, the year after they filed an intent to file a claim of each individual. But we know that opportunity for everybody was over August 14th to file an intent to file.
Okay. So that means that if people did not file that intent to file, they still could file, but
yes,
they're not going to receive the benefits in 2022.
Yes. Okay. So they can file a claim, but their benefits will go to when they filed the claim,
right?
Not from when the bill was signed into law. So look, a lot of veterans out there are struggling. And many have been delayed casualties of war because of the illnesses that presented 5, 7, 8 years later after serving in war, and being exposed to these toxins. And I want to make sure that veterans who qualify, who served our country, can get the most benefit, so that they can live a life that will help them pay the bills, function go to work, or get the treatment, the care that they need.
Okay. I think that's I think that sums up the entire like what you want to promote, right?
Correct.
Unless there's something else that you want to add.
Correct. No, you know, um, uh, early September, we're going to have a Veterans University
Okay.
conference in the Imperial Valley for all the veterans, all the organizations that serve veterans,
Okay.
and their families. And we're going to do training on Veterans Benefits 101, the
Oh,
PACT Act,
perfect.
on like the GI Bill, on how to access the funds at a young age to either start a business or to get an education, and also perhaps even sessions on end of life benefits for veterans who want to make sure that their widows will get the benefits they've earned during their service, so that their family after they're gone can have some peace of mind. So
Okay.
it'll be in early September, and stay tuned for the actual date and location.
Okay, perfect. If I'm still working for Desert Review, I'll love to cover it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ruiz.
You got it. Adios.
Until next time.
Bye bye.